the International Grief Institute, and this is Moments of Hope. Tonight, we have a really remarkable lady joining us to share her story. She lost a baby, stillborn baby, in 1987. In 2002, she lost her 21-year-old son, Brent, in a motorcycle accident. And last year, she unexpectedly explained who you are, and I thought, oh, I better just introduce you. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about Butterfly's journey, and then I want to talk about what you're doing with the photographs, because it's super cool. But when did you start? You've had 3 major losses, a stillbirth, and then you lost your young adult son, and then you are now a widow. And so at what point in there did you start a Butterfly's journey?
Yeah, I also had a miscarriage before that. And so I would like to acknowledge that, because I don't think people get enough acknowledgement when they go through that kind of loss as well.
True.
I started a local support chapter a year after my son died, part of the Compassionate Friends. And then as I retired from the corporate world at IBM, I really wanted to do more. So I had been working on a book, which is also called For a Butterfly's Journey. So I released the book and started an organization kind of at the same time in 2013.
Okay.
When I had a little more time, and I really wanted to do more than what I was doing locally.
And so you are a certified grief recovery specialist, is that right?
Yes, I did. The Grief Recovery Institute has a program, grief recovery methods, and I'm a certified grief recovery specialist. That's a mouthful.
Okay. So on your website, butterfliesjourney.org, it offers the services that you provide for people who are grieving loss of a loved one. But more recently, you have also started doing something super, super cool. You travel the nation. You go to bereavement events, conferences, different venues, and you take photographs of bereaved people. You have them write expressions of grief or expressions of love on their skin, and then you photograph them. Do you have the book with you?
Yes, I have to just go and get it. But I do.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I wanted to show our viewers what it is exactly that you do.
Right, it's in this, but we'll get it.
Okay, you go ahead and grab it. You want to grab it? Yeah. This book is super cool. It hasn't come out yet, but it shows all the different powerful photos that Barbara has been taking around the nation. So there you go. That's the front cover. There you go. Yeah. And so these people write expressions of grief or love on their skin, and then Barbara takes a photograph of them. And so how do you help them come up with the expressions that they're going to write on their skin?
Well, as we've learned, it's really very cathartic for them to do this. And there's something very visceral about writing it on the skin. And this is with washable magic markers, so it comes right off.
Okay.
But it's interesting how many people want to leave it on for the rest of the day. It's kind of like a tribute to their loved one. And this is all about encouraging open expression of grief, loss, and love. So when we talk to them and they're trying to figure it out, we always have a couple of like iPads or kind of slideshows going on, showing them examples. We have a big banner. We have the book and what we've done so far with the proof book to give them ideas. But the saying's got to come from them. We never, ever tell them what to say.
Okay.
It's got to be meaningful to them. So we might ask them leading questions, about was there a particular phrase that you guys shared or are saying, or a question or a nickname or anything like that makes you feel connected to your loved one.
Okay.
You might want to consider using that as part of, what you want to say. But usually when they're looking through all these ones we've already taken, something will click with them.
Right.
And then we help them figure out how do they want to position themselves, because they might want to put it like on the front cover, with the knuckles. They might want to put it with a hand on the heart. They might want it to be, arms, or depending on how much they want to write. I'll help them figure out, how to position it, and then we write it on for them.
And so what inspired you to start this? I've never seen anything like it. You're the only person I've ever met who does this. What inspired you?
I saw somebody kind of expressing themselves. I saw in a totally different context. I saw a couple of photographs like this where people had written on their bodies, and it just occurred to me, it was like a flash that said, can you imagine people that have really had a traumatic loss, such as bereaved parents, the ability to express themselves like this? Because people run from them. They don't. They really. What I hear in my support group all the time is that people go and they'll be in a supermarket and people are running around corners to avoid them.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's hard for them to talk about their grief, and sometimes not even their own families. So this a lot. It struck me when I saw this type of photograph. I need to do this for people that are grieving, and it's so cathartic for them.
And so what have you found is one of the most powerful sayings that you come up with?
Yeah.
How do you not do the same saying twice? You've done hundreds of these.
I've done hundreds of these, and of course there are some that are sayings that are duplicated in somewhat different ways that don't ever restrict anyone. But some of the ones that have really hit me, impacted me, was a mother who lost her son to an overdose, and she wrote, "No shame, no blame, just love."
Oh my goodness!
And another mother who lost her grandson to cerebral palsy, and then his mother committed suicide. And she had grief was the price of love. So, there's things like that are just amazing. And one that's near and dear to me, because my husband had taken a few shots with me when I'd do photo shoots that he attended with me. And we had one from 2 years ago that I found a few weeks after he died that said, "Take nothing for granted." And his arms were around me, and it was written on all four of our arms, and it said, "Take nothing for granted." And I forgot I had even taken that, but it was really meaningful after he died to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how does it make people feel?
I think I have one example that illustrates it, I think, the best is a friend of mine. She lost her brother when she was a teenager. He actually fell over a waterfall. And she's now in her 70s. And so it's been 50 years at least since he died. And she came to one of my photo shoots, one of my local ones, and did that. And when, I forget exactly what she wrote. It was something like, brother forever or something along those lines. She came over afterwards and gave me a hug, and her eyes were all filled. And I said, wow, even after 50 years, she said, yeah, I've never really been able to express myself about it. Just something simple and visual. And like I said, something about the skin it's visceral. And then the other part of it is, of course, after we take these photos, we send them to the subjects so that they can use the photos as a catalyst to talk to other people, talk to family and friends. And that's a big part of healing, to be able to talk about it. And this gives them a way to bring it up without it being awkward.
And do you charge them?
We don't, to take the picture. And then what we do is we send them the photo with a watermark, and we just ask them for a small donation to have a high quality and printable version. And then they can post it or print it or make as many copies as they want. It's fine. We're just looking to try to support future photo shoots, because there's a lot of expense related to the travel and the photographer and the editing and all of that.
Right. A lot of hours go into it.
Oh,
and so how has it helped you? You've been doing this, 3 years?
I've been doing this, let's see. Yeah, we had our first photo shoot. We started Butterfly's Journey in 2013, but our first photo shoot was 2015. And so it's been 3 years. And I love talking to these people. I love hearing the stories. Sometimes we hug each other.
Yeah.
It's very healing for me too, as you know. It helps you heal to help others. And I think that every time, I always do at least one myself whenever we do a photo shoot. So I've got several also that I've it's been cathartic, but it feels like my purpose. It feels like I'm supposed to take this, and I'm taking it international and multilingual. Right now I have English, Spanish, and Hebrew. I have several shots with pets, with animals, especially like service dogs and things like that. I really want to take it. I've got an opportunity to go to London. I'm hoping to be able to do that, and to Montreal. Again, I just want to be able to do a lot more because it just feels right.
It's just, what you've done is amazing. So, oops, I'm hearing a little bit of echo. You getting that?
Just a little, yeah.
Yep. Sorry, viewers. If you can turn your speakers down a little bit, that might help.
Okay. See if that's any better.
Sometimes we get it and then it goes away. I'm not sure. Okay, we're gonna cross our fingers that it goes away. So you have lost. You've had a miscarriage. You had a stillbirth. You lost your 21-year-old son, and now you lost your husband. How has your grief changed over the course of this time?
Wow. I feel a little too practiced at it. That sounds trite, but it's changed. Each one was different. It was individual, and it affected me in different ways, and they were all traumatic, but they were different. And trying to find my way back from that loss was different each time. It really doesn't do any good to compare anything, but it was different, and it was difficult. And in some ways, each death was difficult, more difficult, in a different way. And when I lost my husband, now, alone, in the house by myself, and, having to do everything by myself and trying to figure out, just how to keep going. When I lost my son, when you lose a child, you feel like you've been gutted like a fish. You feel like there's nothing left, right? I remember not being able to read or listen to music, or, and that applied to the babies as well. But it was a little different because I hadn't gotten to know their personalities. Where my son Grant was 21 and had a very strong personality. So it affects you in very different ways, but it's made me strong. It's made me very strong. Honestly, I don't think much of anything could take me down, except for, God forbid, my remaining son. That could, but because now he's given me a grandson who's about to be a year old, and I'm just so delighted with that. And that's what I focus on. I focus on, the positive and what I have to live for, because I know that Jim and Brant and Robbie, and the baby all want me to be happy and healthy. Again, they want me to move on. They don't want me to stay stuck in it.
Well, speaking of that,
yeah,
and I want to bring this up because just in the past week, we've had two high-profile suicides, Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, and it's really rocked the nation. And I guess if there could be a silver lining, so to speak, as a result of that, it's got people talking. And I think that that's a very good thing. But you yourself came close to attempting suicide. Do you mind sharing with viewers what happened, what took you to that dark place, and how did you turn back before it was too late? So I guess what happened? What took you to that dark place?
This was about 9 or 10 months after my 21-year-old died. And it was, of course, a devastating time. Yeah. But what added to it was I was married for 30 years at that point, and my 30-year marriage fell apart. And my husband left me for a younger woman about a year after our son died. And then my remaining son, who was an amazing chef now, but his brother died the week he graduated high school, and then he went off to culinary college and couldn't, keep the concentration because of his grief, and he flunked out his first year. He did get back in and finish, but that year, this was right about when that happened, and I was afraid that he was having problems or might get into drugs. I was also being forced to live alone for the first time ever. So the combination of all of those things, the loss of my son, the loss of my marriage, worrying about my other son, and being alone, starting over, I was 51 at the time. It just, I think it wouldn't have even just that, but then there was always, I think there's a trigger, probably the trigger. So it was a meeting that we were having. I was thinking about starting the support group, and I was trying to support a friend of a friend lost her teenager from a drunk driver, and my veterinarian lost his son to suicide, and I was trying to gather something and start a group and try to help them, and we had a meeting planned for kind of a memorial, and I went to that meeting and they had canceled it, but they had forgotten to tell me. So it was at a time when I really needed to be around people who got it. Mm-hmm. And when I pulled back into my house, so I came home and I pulled back into the garage, and it dawned on me that all this hit all at once. So I closed the garage door and left the car running and figured, okay, this will be it's easy, it's simple, it's carbon monoxide, take care of it, no problem. But thank God that's the way I chose, because it gave me a few minutes to think about it. And I realized within a few minutes that I could not do that to my remaining son. I couldn't put him through that. And that was a turning point for me. So for me, when I talk about choosing to heal, that was when I hit bottom, and that was when I chose to turn around and say, okay, climb out of this hole one day at a time. You know, it's not going to be short or fast or easy, but you have to do it. And I made the decision. I opened the door. I called my sister. Thank God she answered the phone. And I went and met her and, reached out. But I think a lot of people, I don't know, but if they choose a way that's, if there's a trigger like that meeting was such a stupid, simple trigger for me, but it made everything come crashing in on me.
Right.
And if other people have a trigger where they make a decision at a point in time and they do something that's irreversible, it's done. So I think sometimes, and I have a lot of parents with suicides that have lost children to suicide in my support group. And it used to be about 10%. It's now, between that and overdoses, about 50%.
Wow.
Yeah. Horrible.
Oh my goodness. And so I'm still hearing that feedback. So sorry.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it.
Sure what's going on there. Hopefully you can stay with us and get something from this. And so, as someone who considered suicide and made had a plan and was starting to enact on that plan, and then at the last minute felt like you wanted to try to choose to heal, what words of advice do you have for others who might be feeling like they're at that same place you were all those years ago? Uh-oh, we lost you, Barbara. I can't hear you.
Oh,
There you go. I can hear you now.
Okay, I don't know what's going on because I'm not hearing it on my end. Interesting. Okay. I think that it's difficult, right? Because if you're in that lousy place, you don't always think logically. And that's why I feel so bad for these parents that have lost these kids. They just made a bad decision in a moment in time. But I would say, everybody, if they're feeling really lousy, if they reach out, regardless if they reach out to an 800 number, or if they reach out to a friend or a relative or anybody, or at least change the scenery, just get up and change the scenery, and do something different, then maybe they can stop.
We often think about suicide as a result of mental illness, but it's important to understand that it's not always a result of mental illness. It can be from Lewy body dementia. It can occur, especially for the younger generation, the teenagers and the young 20-somethings, in a moment of angst. And, it has nothing to do with mental illness. And so it's very important to be educated about it and understand the different ways that people come to that point where they have suicide ideology. And so, reaching out for support is critical. And for viewers who are having matching pictures with where Barbara was all those years ago, I just want to say that first off, hold on. Pain does ease. Barbara herself has been through multiple losses, And I can't think of anything worse than losing a child or a spouse. And just like you said, losing a child, which is what my loss is like being gutted. But hold on to the idea that hope can be restored, because if it can happen to Barbara and it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. Mm-hmm. And I think, explain the Choose to Heal a little bit more. I know that you have that on your website. What is that all about?
Well, I think that there are some cultures, and in the U.S. and some organizations, that make you feel bad when you want to feel better. And also, I think that I had a conversation with somebody one day who had been on, she was a bereaved mom, but she had been on meds for 32 years, and so sometimes I think we feel guilty, especially in cases of things like suicides and overdoses, where the parents always feel like they should have seen it coming somehow and prevent it, when that's probably not the case, right? My grandmother, I talked about with the Grief is the Price of Love. Her daughter overdosed 9 times, and then she committed suicide. So in her case, she was going to keep doing it because her life just wasn't the way she wanted it to be. But when you choose to heal, you kind of you get to an acceptance about what's happened, and that it's okay for you to heal and to start to get better. And you'll always miss them, but they don't want you to stay miserable, right? They want you to heal, and your loved ones want you to get better.
Right.
And personally, I feel like if your energy level is better, you've got a better chance of connecting with them somehow. Signs and things.
It's even more than that, though. The heart can hold joy the same time as sorrow. You don't have to choose. And I think that when all you feel is sorrow, you don't realize that the heart can hold both. And what I mean by that, as a bereaved mother, I will, miss my daughter with every breath. But I've also found the beauty once again in my world. I laugh. I have many blessings, and I have a lot of joy. And, just like you, Barbara, I will always have those trigger days and such. But, on those days, I honor the sorrow. But in my life as a whole, my heart holds both joy and sorrow. And so I think it's important for people who are feeling like they're never going to feel anything besides pain. It's not true. It does sometimes, you have to be proactive about it, proactive grieving. There's steps you can take to, restore hope to your world. And if you're interested in those, send me an email and I can give you a PDF on what those steps are. My email is linda@lindafeld.com. And I'm happy to share it. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. And it's, you have to understand that it's not one size fits all. And so there's different tools available to you. And so, Barbara, when you started making that choice to heal following that dark moment in your life, have you ever felt like that again? And if so, what steps do you take?
No, I haven't, because then I think I figured out that I could heal and I could move on and I could be happy again. And I started working towards it. And like I said, it's not fast and it's not easy, but one of the important things that I had in the last chapter of my book, also called The Butterfly's Journey, I kind of review it because it was like 10 or 12 years after my 21-year-old died. And I went on quite a spiritual journey. And, I was coming from the corporate world. We didn't talk about stuff like this. It was all very, kind of black and white. And so when I was on a journey to really figure out whether or not my son's spirit continued, and went through all this healing over several years. But the difference was I had an open mind about trying new things, which I didn't before, because I was so desperate to heal and so desperate to figure out really for myself whether or not my loved one's spirits continued, that I started trying all kinds of things that I'd never tried before, like energy healing and meditation and mediums and, all kinds of things. But it helped me heal. It helped me grow. I don't think any one thing works for anybody. I think you have to try a lot of things and pick the 3 or 6 and just keep doing it, that work, that help you, because it's such a unique thing. But it's important to have an open mind about it and just keep trying things. And it's important, I think, to reach out. One of the biggest things, reaching out and helping others like you do and I try to do, that makes a big difference. And then just realizing it's really all about the love. And so cutting yourself or limiting yourself to just focusing on the loss. I think one of the biggest turning points for me was when I started thinking about my son's life as a gift and not a loss. That made a huge difference for me, because it really was. If I had to make a choice to have him 21 years or to never have known him, I'd take the 21 years anytime. And once I started thinking about it like that, that helped me. That helped a lot. So, you have to find, that's part of the choice thing, right? You have to make a choice that you're going to heal from this. You're not going to, wallow is a lousy word, but you know what I mean. You're not going to drown yourself in it.
So if you could go back to time and give yourself, your former self, words of advice today, what would you say?
I think I would be a little kinder to myself. I would be a little kinder and more forgiving of the people around me and how everybody grieved. Like my ex-husband and I grieved very differently, and that was difficult for us, and it added to our split. And I think that, I would just, God, if there was some instant way to know, because as a parent, you're so programmed to just protect your child when you can't anymore. That's the worst part of it. But when I started thinking of, no, his spirit continues, and I've gotten signs, and it's kind of like him being on the other side of the world. I can't physically see him and touch him, but I know he's still with me. When I started, if I could just have thought about that, think of it that way earlier, that would help. But I don't know if you can shortcut that. Everybody's got their own process.
That's right. Well, thanks so much for, sharing your heart and being so candid about your own journey. I think that, for people to hear firsthand what it's like, what goes through your head in that moment where you are thinking of taking your own life, and then, realizing that you want to give it another shot. And look where you are today. You have a very full life. You travel around, you have many, many friends. You're always going out to meals and events and such. And, it's a real treat. I see you smiling on Facebook a lot, and I think that gives a lot of people hope that if you can do it, so can they. So thank you for sharing that. How can viewers contact you if they have any questions or want to know more or want to know where the next city where you're going to be doing your photographs? How can they contact you?
So my website is abutterfliesjourney.org, but it's FLYS, possessive, not plural. Okay. And that's so info@abutterfliesjourney.org would be my email. And my phone number is 617-410-6309. So 617-410-6309 is that. And then I think my next photo shoot is actually at the National Conference for the Compassionate Friends in St. Louis, July 27th to the 29th. After that, I'm going to do Bereaved Parents of the USA, August, I believe it's the 2nd to the 4th in Memphis, or just over the line, I think, in Memphis. I can't remember the name of the town, but it's right near Memphis. And then I've been invited to do a photo shoot at an event called Fed Up, which is a walk on the Capitol about the opioid crisis.
Okay.
And and then there's other things going on. I want to go up to the palliative care in Montreal, and there's still some things getting nailed down. But that's.
Well, you're a busy lady, and I appreciate you taking time out to join us tonight. And thank you for all the wonderful things that you do to help the bereaved. So it's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for as well. And
yeah, and I'll see you at the Compassionate Friends National Conference at the end of July. So viewers, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you have any questions for Barbara, she gave the ways that you can contact her. And I appreciate you hanging in there with us as we have a little bit of feedback. But you have a wonderful night, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.